You have to walk and wonder, how do all these people get around?
Hey,
Gee,
ya, hey, ya, hey, ya, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, ya, hey, ya, hey, ya, hey,
hey,
yo,
oh,
hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, ya, hey, ya. Hey, ya, hey, ya, hey.
oh, this sounds familiar. Now. Yes, it is.
Fort Beck Community College, Ukiebino, yo, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, yo, wata, pepe, hagi, ktabi, ichachi, ya, bino, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, ya, yo. Hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Fort Beck Community College, Ugiebino, yo, yo. Me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, yo. Wata, pepe, hagi, ktabi, ichachi, ya, bino, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya, hey, ya, hey, ha, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, ha, ya, hey, hey, ya, yo. Hey, ya, hey, ha, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, ha, ya, hey, ha. Hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya. Hey, ha, ya, hey, hey, ha, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Fort Beck Community College, Ukiebino, yo, yo. Me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, yo. Wata, pepe, hagi, tabi, ichachi, ya, bino, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya, hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, ya, yo. Hey, ya, hey, hi, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hi, ya. Hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, ho, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Fort Beck Community College, Ukiebino, yo, yo. Me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, yo. Wata, pepe, hagi, tabi, ichachi, ya, bino, hey, 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 yo.
Oh, mitakuipi. Yushkewan chian kampi chantewa shtea yuhan nape zapido. Elijah Hopkins demie. Wana wakchinja wakapa ditya. Dayan ya hipido mitakuipi. Relatives, it's good to see everyone again, and welcome to the Buffalo Chasers podcast at week number 32. Again, we're streaming at you live from Fort Peck Community College. Again, I'm Elijah Hopkins, joined as usual with Mr. Tommy Christian and Mr. Earl Bullhead. So in true Buffalo Chaser fashion, before we get started on our topic and our announcements for the drawing winners and whatnot, we try to start off with a prayer in a good way. And we got Dekshi is back this week. He wasn't able to join us last week. Dekshi, Tommy Christian, if you could share a prayer with us, get us started in a good way.
Oh, Toshka, Wopila Chichan, Daya Chano Hukahe, Ushimalo Mitaki Epiona, Wana, Ochekia, Omakia, Atukashila Nawakantanka, Tateria Doba Unchimakana Makaina, Naku Mitaki Epiwanagi Makpekta, Hochokakta Hiopo, Usha Kemitaki Epichukata Yota Kahechana, a virtual experience, Okia, Ushi Wichalapo, Atukashila Nawakantanka. Gigsiapo mitakiapi winuksalapi wichachalapi na makayajapi hukshilapi winchinchalapi na koskapi wikoskapi na chanku washte unku wichozani washte unkupi okia wa ushi wichalapo atukashila na makantanka gigsiapo mitakiapi agichita uyate kizuya ekta wichashabile na wiapile o wichakiapo ushi wichalapo Tukashila na wakantanka oyate oyasi chanku luta aga omani owichakiapo ushi wichalapo. Hohe chaje mitana wamnishage doba imachiapi ushimalo agnagupta uchekia hemitana. How mitake oasi.
Oh, Pidama. Again, relatives, we are at the week number 32 mark of our Buffalo Chasers podcast. Every week we're doing our best one podcast at a time to address the mental health issues in the community through the discussion of our culture. And so before we get started on the topic, just a reminder, there are some announcements for our week 31 podcast drawing winners. We have a jacket. That winner of that jacket is Mr. Courage Crawford, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations. Winner, chicken dinner. We also have a Kindle Fire tablet on Facebook. She is known as LJ Sandy. I decoded that. I believe that is Lori Sandy, ladies and gentlemen. Winner, chicken dinner. Oh. Redeem your prizes, ladies and gentlemen, at Student Services, Ward Division, or call 768-6370 and they will hook you up. So I'll pass the batons over to Dekshi Tommy. I don't know what he has up his sleeve for topic for today, but it's always good. It's always good cultural stuff we get to listen to.
Yeah, I always like it when you say that winner, chicken dinner. As I was thinking how I say that in Lakota. Ohiasa, Ampetu, Hotai. Water. winner, chicken dinner. But anyway, you know, we had a good meeting today. Can you guys hear me all right? Can you hear me all right, Chie?
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. But we had a good meeting this afternoon with Elijah, myself, Dylan, and Emerson, and another young man there that's going to be helping us with our video stuff. But you know, it's amazing how we were taught to not believe or have trust in one's own, eh? And but we need to understand that our strength, as we realize it, tribalistically, comes based on numbers. The more you have, the stronger you have, and then the stronger you are, and then it's that perspective of community. That community is the ability to communicate with one another these good things that you have locally that you can utilize at a beck and call, just one call and geez, they're there in 2 minutes. Because what if you use somebody way down south, they're way over there in Las Vegas or California, and you have a sick baby and you need some help right now, how are they going to get there? They got to wait 3 days to get there. But if you have a local individual that you recognize as a ceremonial person, or we refer to them as wapia wichasha, wapia wiapi, then they can come and support you. That's the importance of that community, is what the way it was explained to me. And as we do these things, we're going to get stronger if we recognize the importance of utilizing our own. And I think that's why it's so important to, because, I guess, no, I don't guess, I hate that term. That's one of my pet peeves. It's understanding that we need to recognize those local individuals as a resource, as a legitimate resource based on their teachings. And I shared with these two boys that were with us today, they're young men that have been taught properly. I know the grandpa of the one that runs the Sundance over there, and I know the father. Me and Earl were sitting in his sweat lodge because this is the way he lived. This is all he knew. And then, of course, we know the teachers from the West End folks as well, and a long history going on there. But those are legitimate resources that we need to start acknowledging as to bring us strength from within. And we appreciate all the rest that support efforts like this, living the Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota lifestyle. But we need to concentrate on our local resources. Does that make sense, Toshka, Elijah? Based on where we're wishing at some point, there's a method to this madness to where it's all going to come to being to help us realize through this COVID experience where we all had to stay home, man, we couldn't travel. We couldn't go nowhere else. We couldn't go somewhere else and help other people. We had to just help our own. But I think once we recognize our ability to do these things, I think it's important. And it's so important for Chie Earl to be here because, again, he was here. He lived here. He's got. We went through adoption ceremonies with Calvin as a result of our relationship, and he lived like that here. But we were having problems maintaining that cohesiveness within our community because they always called people way over there, way over there. No, Earl was living here, and we had all this done here locally. But it's hard for people to acknowledge our cultural value system when they don't even know it exists. And that's why I think this virtual experience will really reach out to a whole lot of people in helping them understand. Like my brother said last week, in our ceremony, in our protocol, there's no room for ethnocentricity. But at the same time, in the way that I speak as it relates to our values, there's nothing wrong with being ethnocentric. So I don't want to confuse anybody, but in the principle, there's nothing wrong with being ethnocentric. In other words, identifying with oneself in the relationship to that. But in our protocol, there's no room for that because we don't exclude anybody in our cultural value system. Make sense, Chie?
That's a difficult, how would you say, choices to make when there's so many things you know and you hear and you learn about people. You have to be concerned about the specifics of their needs
Yeah.
and how you can help them.
Yeah.
For example, it's a touchy subject, but I was asked one time to compose a song for an individual who had lost his son at a very early age. I don't think he was out of high school. And him and his girlfriend had a diary, and they wrote in these diaries, and nobody knew about it till way afterwards. But she apparently, some things were not going right in Teoshwaya and her family, or Tiwahet. And so she chose to, and the irony of it is that, like somebody was following me. And I know this car was following me, and I drove up to the Grand River Casino for supper, and this car followed me up there. So I thought he was just going there for whatever, and here he pulled in beside me and I knew who he was. So I recognized him, said hello and whatnot. But he was sitting there with a beer can. And on the floorboard, there was some more beer there, but it wasn't open. And so I asked him, what's wrong, Tokai, and he said he needed my help. And what he asked for was, he said he wanted a song composed for the loss of his family. I didn't know the details, but I know the individual, the person. We've always been friends, never said nothing against each other. And anyway, so I told him, I says, well, as long as you don't participate in what you're about to do, I said, I'll help you. He said, I'll put it away. He said, I'm glad you told me that. So as it turned out, I called his missus the next day in Yates. She works for the tribe, and I told her what had transpired. And she said, Earl, she said, please, she said, could you help? She said, we don't know what to do. He's lost.
Yeah.
And it turned out that his son's girlfriend committed suicide.
Yeah.
At an early age, 16 or so, 15, 16. And then they made a vow with each other. And that things didn't work out the way they had planned or whatever, that he would follow her. So after all the service and 2 weeks later, then he did the same. And so when you're confronted with those kinds of assistance or requests, you have to really think about how am I going to project something that was so crucial in a family that was unheard of, suicide that I grew up with. And I had to really say, well, how can I be of assistance? Because the family needs it. And I've never been requested to do anything like this. So I had to contemplate exactly what it is and how I was going to put it into the proper words so that would ease the families and help them get through the morning, And so as time passed, I kept thinking about it. And finally, it dawned on me that one of my aunts, Auntie Vivian from Fort Berthold, she's a young bear married to my Uncle Joe. She said, when it really comes down to it, all we really have for each other is prayer. And that struck me.
Yeah.
And that put that, how would you say, enlightenment in my mind. So then I went from there. And I try to convey the how much cherishing or respect and love they had for their kids, and yet so many different influences today, and our values changed, and all that taken into consideration. I pieced it together, and I finally was happy. And so when they had their doings in Cannonball that year, we are asked to sing that song. And what made it really unique is because I, at that time, sat at the drum by myself. It was asked of me, so I sat at my drum by myself. But when the announcement came, there were other singers that came and joined. I've never heard the song before.
Oh.
And how it went, the lead and all that. And so it says, so we'll start slow and easy, and you'll pick it up. If you're singers, you'll pick it up. And so we started it off, and it became really a nice gesture for the family to be able to do what they had to do to get over all this. And, those things never go away. And so the way I look at it is that when you talk about values, you talk about commitment and wachiniampi, being dependent on it, you have to keep on all those in mind and do the best that you can. And so since then, can remember utilizing that song for any other time. any other, occasions that may come up for that. But I am thinking about chance I get to see the family. I says, I want to put this out for other people because I know that's going on in other places.
Mhm.
A lot of our youth, our young people, times of influence, and just we have to be able to help each other out. So having that experience for me is enlightening, and it's how would you say it? Many of our songs are made that way to help each other get through all this mornings, and then to participate in it. That's part of it also. To be able to show your respect and concern and emotions for the family by a simple handshake or a hug, you know. And most commonly word used is hambalechi or lehichayo. Humble yourself. I remember that word way back when I was a little boy. Lehichayo, you used to always say. Humble yourself. Lehichayo. So I find it a way in which a word like that is so powerful, and that the meaning gets even more in depth as life progresses. Because nowadays I can think about that and give that advice to other people, stay humble,
Oh,
My aunt used to say the uh, the poor will inherit the earth, she used to say. It'll come to pass. So important, it'll come to pass. So advice like that, being raised, and you have the opportunity to put those into words, because I sat many hours thinking about, am I helping to glorify what transpired?
Yeah.
Am I really, should it really be happening when in our upbringing that this is not the way to treat your body, or, and so I had to balance everything out and think about, it all comes down to that one expression. All we have for each other is the power of prayer.
mhm.
And so the song became utilized and used, and every once in a while I'll sing it to myself just to keep myself humble,
Oh,
and hope that other young people don't take that route. And so, and the other aspect of that too is that if something like that powerful, that needy, needs to be shared. And so I'm going to take it upon myself and go ahead and either put it on Facebook or post it somehow so people can see the text and the origin of it, and so they too can find comfort in it.
yeah.
So I basically, how would you say? My brother said you should think about writing a book with your life. I said, I don't know. I want to stay humble. I don't want to go. I don't want to give that kind of notoriety. So I try to stay cool about it, but oftentimes I'm asked those kinds of questions about. And very few times though, like people ask me about a particular song. Where'd you get that song?
Yeah.
I said, well, a family asked me. It's just like when I was asked to compose a song for James Eater. You were there that time, Tommy.
Yeah.
And they gave me a newspaper article and they wanted it the next day.
Yeah.
And so I had to contemplate that and think about that and just try to tell the story from that newspaper and put it and convey it to the words and the tune. And that's there too. Very, very powerful, emotional, spiritual song,
Yeah.
One of the greatest honors that they can bestow on a warrior. So those how would you say it, experiences help mold and shape a person's integrity. You want to call it integrity,
Oh,
and so trying to live by it sometimes. You go to a powwow and you hear these guys singing and they're saying the wrong words incorrectly. Instead of saying, Wheat for Islanders saying wheat for eggs.
Oh.
You know, we took 6 islands. It's a veteran song in here.
Mm.
We took 6 eggs, you know. And so how do you change that? Well, that's education.
Yeah.
You know, you take that and you talk about, here's an example of what can happen, you know.
Yeah.
So in life's experience here, I'm really been fortunate to be influenced by a lot of good people.
Yeah.
Well, mostly have all gone on their journeys, but I've been very fortunate getting advice from those people and staying humble about it. Lahitia, you know. It's difficult.
Oh,
I'm often wondering, I say, well, what am I saying or doing right now? You know, is going to help people. And I pray for the best of it, but also I know about balance so I can keep it in check. And one of the things that when you mentioned earlier about we cannot discriminate against other people no matter what race they are. And that's difficult, very difficult. I taught a class at the University of North Dakota, and there's this young man, very attuned to the language and learning. He was fast. He knew other languages. His parents were Bible translators. They go Philippine Islands, wherever there was a need to translate the Bible. So he was in my class and very attentive. And so I often told him, I said, anytime you want to talk about language or if you see me in public, don't be afraid to talk to me. So anyway, I'm walking down the store one time and he was from Texas. Hi, Ocala. He said, hey, Steve. You know, so you have to take that in the stride. So anyway, he offered to do his presentation first for his final grade. He either had to read in Lakota or sing a song or, you know, share something in the language for your final grade.
Mm.
And so he took the floor and he did the etiquette and protocol was there for him, tobacco and a prayer, and then he started singing. And so the other students that are in here are all Native Americans. A few other Caucasian students, but anyway, he started singing, Kohler Tukili, Kohler Tukili. And gee, you know, you could look around and see people putting their mouth on their hands.
Yeah.
Gee, you know, just going on. Is this happening? And then when he finished, he thanked everybody, shook hands, and he went out the classroom, said goodbye. Nice knowing you and all that stuff. He left, and somebody looked out the window as he's getting in his car. They said, oh, we all looked at each other. We didn't mean to, but that was a big surprise. But
that southern twang in there.
yeah, they want to learn. I know they have no other choice but to help them out. You know?
Turn
But it was
cars
very,
hard.
yeah, that you
Yeah.
she, I mean, he back to him. He didn't
No.
quite sing it right, but he
Yeah.
made the effort. And
Oh,
that's what you have to praise, you know,
yeah.
people to make an effort.
But you know, that Chien, you know, and we talk about these things, and that's what we're trying to help people understand, you know, utilizing your local resources, but at the same time, understanding we've always had these.
Yeah.
And affording them when we talked about a little bit in our meeting this afternoon earlier during lunch, if somebody has an epiphany or a spiritual involvement, we want to help them understand that, hey, you have another option available to you to pursue some clarity for the sake of avoiding that confusion that represents that fear. Because again, from these ones that kind of just do it,
Yeah.
you know, we'd like for them to understand there's individuals that we've acknowledged and we identified that do have the ability to provide that clarity, in our way. But again, that's where that trust issue, that's what I was talking about earlier, about the trust within the community, and strengthening ourselves from within. And I strongly believe, just based on You know, like the story you just shared with us about the guy, Doki Arye, turn car, shoot R, Omar Giario. And to us, it's laughable, but we're not laughing at him. We're laughing with him in respect to he's trying hard, and it's at his not. There's no fault of his own because he had a southern twang that he didn't learn. He learned. So I don't want to confuse anybody in this basic fundamental principle of involving oneself. We're not trying to make medicine men or medicine women or holy people, priests or bishops. We're trying to really precipitate and promulgate this ekchewichasha perspective, eh? Ekche, just common people. But yet there's an avenue that can provide some clarity that where you don't have to belong to anything or anybody, but yet you get that understanding of the spiritual connection if in fact you do have an epiphany of some sort. And I say that from a personal perspective because that's what happened to me. But at the same time, um, we need that opportunity to make that choice. We need that available and accessible to us so that we don't have to struggle. Like what you're saying, it's hard to do some of these things. You know, it's hard to be an Indian, but I love my Indian ways and mitake watching me up it. And again, my relatives are depending on me. And once we recognize these things, we realize the ones that were supposed to be taught, that we identified in our communities, that's their dedication and purpose in life because they have the development in their own little disposition or their personality they're not chosen per se, but they have that. That's why I mentioned disposition. They have that within their disposition to carry these things on as it relates to the importance of protocol, not necessarily a doctrine where it's regulatory, but one that is spiritual where it's a matter of choice. So as we pursue these things and we continue to strive to help others as opposed to helping yourselves, we aspire to helping others. That's Dakota, Lakota, Nakona. That's what that means. We're your allies, we're your friends, we'll help you in time of need. That's what we refer to ourselves as, and we aspire to that purpose and that dedication of helping others. And so people can't understand that because sometimes they get caught up in, I need to be frugal, I need to get the biggest bang for my buck, and put it in a very capitalistic perspective where that's why we want to remain apolitical and apersonal in this spiritual perspective as it relates to how you view the world. What is the right of your own integrity as you see things? And so therefore, we really afford the people an opportunity to depend on their critical thought, taking the initiative to really express yourself from your perspective, because in all reality, you're helping that individual way on the other side of that circle get a little bit more clarity as to what the Senate looks like. So, does that make sense, Toshka, Elijah? I don't want to confuse nobody because I'm coming from my teachings and sharing them, but at the same time, I don't want to leave nobody behind. I would like for them to be able to keep that thought process, and at the same time, not forgo theirs, not give theirs up to go, but to be able to achieve that sense of balancedness with this commonness, like when Chie said, "Blahichiayo," you humble yourself, and then also I always say, "Blahichia," it means give yourself strength. It also applies to that, which is again humbling yourself based on your strength of character. Uh, that's what I don't want to confuse people with, but I would afford them an opportunity to be critical thinkers, take the initiative and process this information that you're receiving on here, understanding the importance of we have local resources and references that we can call upon to help us in these things. But we're not trying to be holy men or holy women in that respect because we participate. There's some people just sit outside the sweat lodges. Some people just sit outside the Sundance and they're supporting it, but they're not participating because they don't need to at that point in their life. So it's kind of like that, sort of that. Now, Toshka, does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, I think when we were visiting with those gentlemen this morning, I know one of them specifically was very open-minded. They both were, but one was explained how maybe they were really almost looking forward to watching the transformation of some of the individuals that would participate, you know, by those that volunteer to share their experience. You know, whether it's our students that we extend the invitation to have that experiential learning opportunity, and they're open-minded to it. So with you know, following your lead with organizing this meeting, I think it's definitely something we can build upon, and then create it like we talked about before. Now we're almost at the phase of the discussion where we're operationalizing a plan to actually get our students and community members, connecting them to local resources, like you're saying, and I really like, kind of excited really for the opportunities for them to have those, even if it isn't right in the ceremony, it's everything that leads up to the whole thing, you know. And it was like, and I think that's demystifying what the ceremonies might be. You just putting in the work and the camaraderie, and then connecting them with those individuals, and then they'll kind of map out their own ways. That's kind of why I look at it, you know, just even from my experiences of participating, it's, you kind of develop your own connections, your own relationships with some of those individuals in there, and it can be whatever you want it to be. But as long as we're respectful about it, and you know, we kind of be respectful with those individuals that are sharing their time with us.
Yeah. See, and that's what we talked about during our meeting this afternoon during lunch break. For those that are listening, we spoke about giving y'all an understanding of what it takes to be a ceremonial person, just not the teachings of that individual, but all that it comes about. We're going to go out and we're going to document the gathering of wood, the gathering of the rocks, the making of the fire, the ceremony, not itself, but the where they stage the ceremony, and kind of give you an idea on what it takes to help others. Because when, like that time I prayed in English, I wanted you to understand none of those prayers were about me. They're about everybody else, because that's our thought process. That's what we aspire to. It's for the sake of others that we do these things. And that's why I don't necessarily call it prayer, but speaking with a spirited, energized voice, so to speak. And so in that, the requests that are made, I always refer to them as well as wishes for good things for other people, not for myself. And in that process, that's what we're wishing for everybody to grasp onto for the sake of our community. And again, bonding together and representing the fact that, hey, I'm from Poplar, be proud of that. I'm from Brockton, be proud of that. But don't exclude yourself from saying, I'm from Brockton, we're better than you. It's not a competition. It's an a perspective or principle to where we believe we're all the same in this spiritual energies eyes, if there's eyes, that we're all the same across the board. There's no titles, there's no higher place or anything, but when I say that, that principle is we're all just common people. And so with that all being said, like my brother Earl was saying, people are going to depend on you. They're going to depend on you, like he was sharing about that song of this individual that lost his son to suicide. That those sorts of things, if if my older brother, didn't know how to apply his knowledge, his understanding of these ways to that very sensitive issue, that would have never had taken place, and that people would never had an opportunity to grieve in our way that the loss of that loved one. Uh, so now he's wishing to make it a little bit more accessible through Facebook or through these different social medias that they will, so other people can understand they're not alone in that aspect, that they can understand there's also other ways to grieve. There's also other ways to apply this personal relationship you have with your higher power, whatever that consists of, without having to be self-righteous or pious or anything like that, but just being a common man, just a simple common person that is wishing for the development of their character to become stronger, humbling themselves in a good way for the sake of others, and especially, your children, those are following you on this red road, and again, you're making good tracks for them. So just kind of like that, and it's quite an experience. We're not going to get in a hurry because we want to give this some legitimacy. I hate using that word, but I think it's something that we can all relate to in regards to how we live, because we never professed about it before. We never testimonialed about it before. We never evangelized about it before. But I think under this virtual experience, we can share it in a respectful way without imposing or infringing on anybody else's right to exist, because we're affording them an opportunity of choice. You see? And so that's what I would like for everybody to understand, the importance of that intuitiveness within us. Once we think about it, like my older brother said, give it some integrity based on what your thoughts are, what you feel about it. And if it works for you, fine. But if it don't, that's fine too. That's okay. But in this way, we're recognizing our purpose and our dedication, whatever that may consist of. We all have different roles to play as we position ourselves in this changleshka, or the circle of life, as they refer to that as, and try to be humble in that experience, but not to virtually signal how good I am. Because when somebody tells me how good they are, I will say, oh, I wonder why they're saying that. Because blehiti, like my older brother said, humble yourself. If you guys, like, I can say that because I'm Eapa. If you guys knew what my older brother Nietzsche Ole really did in his life, oh man, it's just amazing, some of the accomplishments, some of the things, and some of you are listening to his prayer songs, his music and you don't even know it's him, because again, you wouldn't, because he don't brag on what he's done, what he's accomplished. And so now, for the sake of clarity, he's bringing some of these principles of humbleness to our ears to help us realize that's how you maintain your integrity, as you bring clarity on how these things came about. So it's pretty, I think it's pretty cool myself. What do you think, Jay?
I was trying to find this song that related to what you had to say about the change that people value or look at. And one of them was 1910, a recording that said that you want me to become something I wasn't grown up with. And what she's really saying is that you want me to adopt your values, but I can't let go of mine. The way we were raised.
Yeah.
And so this is generation to generation that's come down, and it's in a book, Densmore collection, So I'll try to find that real quick. But anyway, what it basically means is that we have ancestors and forefathers who understood these ways, who had the foresight and knowledge to say, these songs are important, They got, I believe they got 10 cents for a song. And they had a committee. Francis Densmore was hired out of the Folk Life DC to go and record all of these in wax cylinders.
Mhm.
And so the work in it gets to be kind of a little, how would you say it, intense, because the sounds oftentimes are too fast, or they do your best. You do the best that you can to try to figure out how the whole song goes. But the meaning of the song to me is that this is something that we need to pass on to the next generations, is to find that spirit and balance that's within your own self, and then exercise it. Because we're confronted by so many things, even down to our grandchildren. I have a grandchild that wasn't well taken care of when he was a baby, so kind of saddens me to think that that type of influence was in his life. So he told things, but he just doesn't able to follow up on what he's being told. He forgets right away. So we as teachers, as grandparents and dads and fathers, we do our best that we can, but it all comes down to that power of choice. It's a given thing for us, power of choice. You have to decide what you're going to do with it for yourself. And then from there, that harmony and what they call a wahwala comes into practicing
Oh,
peace of mind,
mhm.
and then how you can share all of that with other people or live their life that's pertinent to that. But anyway, I couldn't find the song, but I still got to figure out how to way to put this on a camera so I can switch it around and you guys can see it. And so, because if I stuck it in front of you, you see it's backwards.
The Indian
There's a
name of it.
conversion that you can get, which reminds me,
What?
and this goes to Elijah, if he knows a little more about it. But some time ago, I saw an application on a computer where you speak in English, and it'll print the text on the screen.
It's called Dragon Speak.
Yeah,
They make that for people that are disabled, that can't use their hands well.
yeah,
You speak and yeah, it'll put it in a Word document for you.
yeah. I'd like to do that because this is where my I can, because it just seems better coming from the heart and the mind than
Mm.
reading it from the book, my life's experiences.
Gixia Che, Dragon Speak.
Dragon Speak.
Oh,
Yeah, after the call, I'll visit with you what we can do, and even Zoom itself. They Zoom has some transcription that it'll record and it'll kind of do that for you. But as far as getting it onto an actual text, to a Word document, Dragon Speak, we can visit about that later.
Yeah, because you can print it out. Like for instance, dragon, I guess in our language it'd have to be utohi.
yeah. Oh. Tell them what I'm
Utohi iwoglake.
dragging your words around.
The creature from the water speaks.
Yeah.
I learned about that when I was up in Fort Totten. Some of the older gentlemen, who some of them have actually witnessed or seen on occasions, and some of it was in newspapers too. Years ago, there was a train bridge that was built from Highway 2 to the getting into Devil's Lake on that Narrows, and it was just completed. And they had a great big over the weekend, holiday weekend or something like that. Something came through then. There was no storm. It broke right through the support beams and all that stuff. It came right through there, broke through there. And people have witnessed and said they've seen it. It's kind of like Loch Ness Monster kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
But it was in two articles. One was from an Indian agent where the Ktohi came out of the ice, you know, came close enough where he hit it with his hatchet and sparks flew off of it.
Mhm.
So this is all part of the how would you call it, the significance of that lake, Devil's Lake. Uktohi, it was called. Charles Eastman writes about that in his book, Indian Boyhood. So,
What about that time Lala Joe was looking for a Chia Tanka? And that guy, he banged that side of that building.
that's
Ah,
another story.
Leta!
Yeah, when Bigfoot was seen in the Lilygold area, they abandoned Head Start Center in Lilygold there. It's not too old and abandoned, but they built a fire in there. They brought in all whatever they needed and they had a fire. So people came, parked all around that. And they had security outside. I know the gentlemen, I won't mention their names, but I knew this, while that was going on, you could hear people singing and stuff. And the guy who was singing surprised me. He knew those kinds of songs. Anyway, this little boy, a special ed boy, come along. And they said, what are you doing here? You go home, go to bed, you stay away from here. And so he looked at them like this, and his influence, wherever it came from, he looked at them kind of mean, and he gave him the finger, and a little special ed kid. Anyway, it was really getting hot and heavy because you could really hear people singing, and here he come back with a great big stick. And those buildings were made so they had these little perforations sticking out the building, these panels made out of metal. Why, he grew next to our kid. He said, so they got off the car and he, oh yeah, Kigalan. He was looking at them like that and he had that stick. Oh yeah, so they pretended to chase him. Geez, he took off and he grabbed that stick, put it up against the wall, and brrr, he went across the wall. People come flying out of there.
They thought Bigfoot was there.
They were calling Bigfoot spirit. So I know he owned it. Now those are the things that are so hilarious. Jumped in their cars and everybody headed out. Where'd everybody go? I would have ran too, man. But there's a lot of those good stories like that you grew up with. That put into a text form, it'd really be something. So, Dragon's Breath, huh? Probably Japanese did that. But anyway, yeah, that'd be nice. I've seen it and I was sitting here. It's a lot of work to be done, and if I can just find a way to. So I know I'm going to forget stuff, My wife told me that. You better record some of these songs. You're going to forget them, sure enough.
Yeah.
But I got my son and he remembers, so I'm fortunate there.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, so how are we doing here? We got a few minutes left here. Any questions?
Before you go off the air, now Earl, you got to make sure in August, Elijah said.
Oh, yeah. We were up Bismarck looking at that.
Leland going to come up and we'll do it down at Dylan's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were looking at the stuff that
ceremony or whatever and all that good stuff too.
We looked at all the stuff that we're going to need up there. So at some point we'll have to get together and get all that stuff purchased.
Yeah. Send a list to Elijah. He can start accumulating something.
It won't be expensive. So
yeah.
That stuff is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, we got word we're officially approved for the grant, so we can start spending, I think, within the next week or two. Yeah, we can have a good game plan. And
yeah.
Well, let's see, we got a few minutes. Did I guys tell you about my ketchup? This old man was always ordering a hamburger and French fries at this restaurant. And his name was Walking Sam. Still don't know what his real name is. But anyway, he was telling one of my aunties, she said, oh, they really treat me good. He
He likes that hamburger.
Yeah, he said, I put ketchup on there. He said, I like that. Fries, hamburger, put ketchup on there. And they're always giving me ketchup, he said, but when he got done, he put the cap back on there. You know how the ketchup seeps out on the sides of the cap. He'd grab that and he'd lick it clean with his lip, with his tongue. You know, you can have that. You can take that with you. Hello, how yake? Agala, they said, take it home with you.
That's yours now. You can take it.
Oh, that was funny. I mean, I like stuff like that.
Just like this one kid, he lived in the mountains over in Hayes all the time, and his dad never took him to town ever, eh? And so here on his 16th birthday, his dad, okay, come on, boy, you're going to town. So they went to Fort Belknap, stopped at Harlem. They went to Harlem, stopped at the restaurant, and the old guy was his dad was talking to him. He said, "Now, boy, you're getting old now. You're gonna have to learn how to deal with this," because he was really shy. He wouldn't look at the waitress or anything like that. He wouldn't look at people. He was sitting there. He's really bush cat. They're really from the mountains. So that waitress come in and said, "Okay, what would you like?" And he said, "Ask him." So that little boy was sitting there. He said, "Oh, young boy," he said, "what would you like for breakfast?" "I'll have grease and bannock." Oh. No, his dad. No. You'll have eggs and hamburger. "I'll have grease and bannock." That's all he ate for breakfast. Cleaned out his dad.
This time when they baptized this little boy, they pushed him in the water, pulled him back up, and they haven't seen the Lord. I didn't know what was going on. They took him back down there and held him a little longer, prayed, and brought him out. "Have you seen the Lord?" He looked up, he said, "Are you sure he went down here?"
Are you sure he's down here somewhere? Okay, wana garushta.
Oha.
Who's not below, eh?
Oh, matakupi. Tuksta kewachia kapikte.
Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya 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 hey yo hey yo Fort Beck Community College Ukiyebino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pevi hagik tabi ichachia ya bino hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ha yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey yo Fort Beck Community College Ukiyebino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pevi hagik tabi ichachia ya bino hey